In a small town in the United States, tucked between quiet hills and endless fields, there lived an old carpenter named Mr. Whitaker. His workshop was on the edge of the marketplace, a simple wooden building that smelled of pine, oak, and fresh sawdust. Generations of townspeople knew him as the man who could take a plain piece of wood and shape it into something beautiful and lasting. Chairs that never wobbled, tables that became family heirlooms, and cradles that rocked, not just children, but entire family legacies. But what people admired most was not just Mr. Whitaker's skill, it was his patience. He never seemed hurried, never seemed frustrated. He worked with steady hands and a calm heart, as though every piece of wood held a secret waiting to be uncovered. One warm afternoon, as golden sunlight streamed through the open windows of the workshop, a young boy named Ethan wandered in. Ethan was about 12 years old, full of energy and curiosity, but also full of frustration. He clutched a small wooden boat in his hands. Though it barely held together, the sides were uneven, nails stuck out awkwardly, and when he had tried to place it in the river that morning, the boat had sunk instantly. Ethan dropped the broken boat on the carpenter's workbench with a sigh. "Mr. Whitaker," he said, his voice heavy with disappointment, "I give up. I'm just no good at making things. I tried to build this boat all week, but it's useless. Everything I make falls apart." The old carpenter looked up from the rocking chair he was sanding and studied Ethan's sad face. Then he glanced at the boat, crooked, splintered, and broken, and smiled softly. "Ah," he said gently, "you've brought me something very special." Ethan frowned. "Special? It's terrible." Mr. Whitaker shook his head. "Not terrible, special, because this boat isn't just wood, it's a lesson." The boy tilted his head, confused. "A lesson? What do you mean?" The carpenter stood and walked to the back of the workshop. He returned holding a block of rough, unshaped oak. He placed it on the bench next to Ethan's broken boat. "Do you see this block of wood?" he asked. Ethan nodded. "Yeah, it's just a block." Mr. Whitaker's eyes twinkled. "To most people, it's just a block. But inside, hidden deep within, is a chair, or maybe a table, or perhaps a toy boat stronger than the one you made. My job is to bring that hidden thing out. But I can't rush it. If I swing my tools carelessly, the wood will crack. If I grow impatient, I'll ruin it. It takes patience, steady effort, and learning from every mistake to find the beauty inside." Ethan looked down at his crooked boat. "So you're saying I didn't fail? I just didn't have patience?" The carpenter nodded slowly. "Exactly. You see, wood is honest. It teaches us that good things take time, just like life." He handed Ethan a small piece of sandpaper. "Here, try smoothing this block. Slow, steady strokes. Don't rush." The boy hesitated, but began sanding the block. At first, the surface felt rough and stubborn. His arm grew tired. "This is hard," Ethan muttered. Mr. Whitaker smiled. "Yes, but notice what happens if you keep going. Bit by bit, the wood listens to your effort. It doesn't change in one big moment, it changes little by little." Minutes passed. Then Ethan noticed the surface growing smoother under his hands. His eyes widened. "It's actually working." "Of course," the carpenter said kindly. "That's the secret of both wood and life. Steady effort brings change, even if you don't see it right away." Ethan's frustration began to ease. He asked, "But what about my boat? I wanted it to float today, not after 100 tries." The carpenter chuckled softly. "Ethan, The river doesn't reach the ocean in a day, yet it always gets there. If you only focus on the result, you'll lose heart. Focus on the process. Every cut, every sanding stroke, every nail placed with care. Success will come as naturally as the river flows. Ethan thought about this. So, I should keep trying even if I fail? Yes, Mr. Whitaker said firmly. Failure is not the end. It's the teacher. Every broken boat, every crooked cut, every splinter, those are lessons shaping your hands and your heart. Ethan's face brightened. Then, will you teach me to make a stronger boat? The carpenter nodded. I will, but only if you promise to be patient with yourself. I promise, Ethan said with a grin. And so began a new chapter for the boy. Each afternoon after school, Ethan went to Mr. Whitaker's workshop. He learned how to measure carefully, how to sand smoothly, how to use the right nails and tools. At first, his work was clumsy. Pieces didn't fit, boards cracked, nails bent. But Mr. Whitaker never scolded him. Instead, he'd smile and say, "Good, now you've learned what not to do. That's progress." Day by day, Ethan's hands grew steadier. His eyes grew sharper. Slowly, he began to build not just boats, but little shelves, birdhouses, and toys. Each project carried the marks of effort, mistakes, corrections, and growth. One spring afternoon, after weeks of work, Ethan finally finished a new wooden boat. This time, it was strong, balanced, and smooth. Together with Mr. Whitaker, he carried it to the riverbank. The water sparkled in the sun. Ethan set the boat gently on the surface, holding his breath. To his delight, the boat floated. The current carried it gracefully downstream, bobbing but steady. "I did it!" Ethan shouted with joy. Mr. Whitaker placed a hand on his shoulder. "Yes, you did. But more importantly, you learned. You learned that patience, persistence, and care can turn failure into success." Ethan nodded, eyes shining. "I get it now. My first boat wasn't really a failure. It was just the beginning of learning." The carpenter smiled. "Exactly. You see, life is like carpentry. Every mistake is just another cut, another chance to shape yourself into something stronger." Time passed, and Ethan grew into a young man. Inspired by Mr. Whitaker, he studied carpentry and engineering, combining the old man's wisdom with modern skills. He built furniture, homes, and bridges that served the community for generations. Whenever people admired his work, Ethan would smile and tell them, "It all started with a broken boat and a wise old carpenter who taught me patience." As for Mr. Whitaker, he continued working in his workshop until his hands grew too tired. But his legacy lived on, not just in the furniture he built, but in the lessons he had passed on to Ethan and many others who had stopped by his workshop. Ethan, now grown, often invited children into his own workshop. When they grew frustrated with mistakes, he would place a rough block of wood before them and say, "Inside this block is something beautiful, but only patience will reveal it." And so, the wisdom of the old carpenter flowed on, shaping lives, like the river shapes stones, slowly, steadily, and beautifully. True success and skill do not come instantly. They are shaped through patience, steady effort, and learning from mistakes, just as a carpenter shapes wood into something lasting and beautiful. Every failure is not the end, but the beginning of growth. If this story inspired you, subscribe to Wisdom Life to uncover more life-changing lessons. And don't forget to like, comment, and share.